In this lecture, we're going to be looking at basically the author of the Crime of the American Dream book's central thesis, what they're talking about. And as I've listened to the speeches, the statements that have been given about what people are asking for, what they want to see change in American society, this book that was written, I think, about 25 years ago at this point, has never been more relevant. The issues of inequality, the issues of systemic racism, systemic blocking of access to the same goals that everyone shares are highlighted in everything in this text. So this particular book at this particular time, there's the cliche of the algebra teacher in high school getting asked, when am I going to use this information? Now. You will use the information in the Crime of the American Dream text now. You will use it today. When you read it, you will wish that you had it yesterday. So we're going to look at that central sort of thesis and what they're talking about in this lecture. So the paradox of American ideals: America thrives on innovative spirit, accumulation of wealth, competition, and efficiency. Basically capitalism, but fair capitalism. Not a situation where people are having blocked opportunities. So the sort of an ideal capitalistic environment. And so there's a structural interdependence between the good and evil in American society. So to have success, you have to have failure. For there to be a hero, there has to be a villain, which creates a sort of free-for-all approach where the heroes and the villains have a lot in common. The same goals, the same push for individual achievement that motivated Bill Gates is also found in Bernie Madoff. An individual that created the largest Ponzi scheme and most destructive Ponzi scheme in American history, versus someone that revolutionized home computers. I'm making this video on a Windows operating computer. Those drivers, when we're looking at individuals that aren't necessarily working on that scale, people that are working on the normal person daily scale, that strive, those ups and downs are manifested in sort of street level crime, violent crime, property crime. So some of the things they say that crime is not, it's not just basically from sick people, greedy people, immoral people, as is a common conservative frame. It's not a product of ineffective justice system, common media frame, and we'll see how effective our justice system actually has been when you talk about effectiveness in processing clientele. It's not effective in issuing justice, but it is very effective in operating the assembly line crime control sort of model that it tries to. Crime is also not just a product of poor social conditions, sort of a common liberal frame. It's not the people, it's not the conditions, it's a very complex soup of situations and conditions, and we'll talk about those as we go throughout the course of the semester, and we'll go through the text. Some of the larger overarching things they say crime is, though. Crime in modern U.S. society is akin to the toxic waste that is left over when you produce cheap, clean, nuclear energy. So if you want to have everyone striving for success, there are going to be some people that fail, and there are also going to be some people that take shortcuts. Crime should be expected given our wide open capitalistic economy and system of democracy-based government, which basically means we allow ourselves to make the laws. The way that we've written them is such that we have less restrictions than some other countries, which again people have been sort of bucking up against with requirements to wear a face mask and things like that. Um, you should wear a face mask if you want to go back to campus in the fall. Wear a face mask. Um, so there's been sort of a pushback against any kind of restrictions on, how many people can go inside of a Home Depot, or should the businesses have to remain closed? Should the barber shops have to remain closed? I've been doing my own quarantine barbering myself, but because we have this wider berth of freedoms, we also have more accountability. It's kind of a twist on the Spider-Man thing. Great power comes great responsibility. With increased freedom comes increased accountability. So what they're talking about and what they're saying drives people is the American dream. And I'm not talking about some sort of idealistic, bullshit Norman Rockwell picture from the 1940s about two kids, a dog, 2.5 cars, and a 2-story house, all that. I'm talking about the American dream as in success by any means necessary, by this materialism, this fetish over money, achievement that you have to be all that you can be. Everyone has to go for this, and we have the personal freedoms to do so. This has sort of been created by our unique history in this country. Rebellion from England. We have the major industrial revolution. The United States becomes the economic focal point of the world. The Great Depression, the turmoil of the 1960s with the Civil Rights Movement, women's liberation movement, the protests against the war in Vietnam, increased use of psychedelic drugs in the larger society and in the culture. There's just been a lot of major events that have taken place in the United States that have given us this very unique culture that we have. So it brings out the best and the worst in American society and culture. The drive for monetary success builds the economy, but restricts other valued achievements. So it's there's no monetary reward for going to a kid's little league game, or to help a kid with their homework, or to take your family to the lake on the weekends instead of going into the office. The system promotes achievement and innovation, but with the pressure to succeed at all costs. So it's not, you have to keep going. You have to keep bettering yourself. There's a scene in the TV show called The Wire, where two kids that are, I say kids, I think one of them's maybe 17, the other one's like 15 or 14, are serving as drug lookouts for a heroin operation, and they're eating chicken McNuggets, and the one guy's like, man, I bet the guy that invented the chicken McNuggets is rich. And the other guy's like, stupid, he's probably working in the basement of McDonald's, and he's got to make something else tomorrow. He didn't get rich off the chicken McNuggets. McDonald's got rich off the chicken McNuggets. The system glorifies individual competition, but weakens community ideals. Again, it's everyone's out for their own individual self. Now, some people might get rich and then give money back to their town or something like that. But that doesn't happen everywhere, and it shouldn't be towns there, waiting to win the lottery of having a rich former resident. But that's the situation that we're in. Everyone's expected to succeed, but little assistance is provided along the way. One of the things President Obama said was that community college should be free to everyone. Everyone that wants to go to community college and get an associate's degree or get started on a bachelor's degree should be allowed to do that. But we don't do that. We make it more and more expensive every year to pay for these things. Instead of offering more assistance, we're putting more blockades in front of people to prevent them from bettering themselves. This system, this ethical system, this ethos yields instability in the social institutions. So the school system is undervalued. The family system is undervalued. Everything except the economy is undervalued. So because the economic system is overvalued, that's what's important. Do you have a good job? How are you going to make a living? How are you going to pay for your family? Those are all the questions. Those are the questions that matter. Education becomes a means to an end. No one cares about what they learn. It's only about getting a degree. That's not the way that it should be. There are, there's electives and there's classes that you're going to have to take that you think are bullshit, blow off classes, whatever. That's going to happen almost in anything. There's going to be some things that aren't necessarily relevant to what you want to do with what you're being presented. But for the most part, you should be learning something in these classes. That's why I like teaching this course in particular, because it's every week there's something to learn, and not necessarily something to learn, but something to think about. Because a lot of this stuff, a lot of the fucked up situation between the police and the community, no one's, surprised that this happened. It's just like, okay, well, it's happening now. There's people are surprised that it took this long. The family system gets undervalued. Again, it's if you're providing for your family, then that's seen as the benchmark, and not are you nurturing them? Are you promoting their success? It's only looking at the economic side of this. The political system is probably the system that's been the most corrupted by the overvaluing of the economy, because most politicians don't care about their constituents. Someone said something about Mitch McConnell recently, that if Mitch McConnell actually voted for the betterment of his constituents in Kentucky, it would be by accident. They're looking out for keeping their own position. They want to keep their paycheck and their government job. And as we've been talking about, dismantling the police system, I feel like we might need to do a complete ground up restoration on some of our legislative bodies. The system has in place an appearance of equality, but as we all know, it's not equal. It's not equal based on economic distribution. It's not equal based on race, racism, systematic racism, bigotry, prejudice across racial lines, cultural lines. There's not an even playing field. The idea of pulling yourself by your bootstraps is something that you can apply when someone has a success story, but that ignores the millions and millions of failures. The wealth is horribly stratified in this country. We'll see, these are just some basic breakdowns, and we'll see more specific when we look at a breakdown based on racial issues later on. But it's extremely stratified in a very small percentage of individuals. Okay, so the central premise of the authors and what they have is that crime is produced by many of the same features that contribute to success. So society doesn't cause crime, but it makes it more likely. Society built for crime. The system that we have in place, the inequality that we have in place, there's a lot of things that we'll look at throughout the course of the semester when we see what is specifically affecting crime rates in particular areas. The cultural context shapes crime and justice, and crime and justice shape the cultural context. So it's a feedback loop happening between how people view crime and then how people view crime, and then how that affects the decisions that are made in the political system. Crime is viewed as a social problem, complex equation about how crime occurs, which will then require a complex equation in our response to crime. We're going to look at both crime happening at the individual level, but also look at some of the larger societal factors that influence the crime rate. And also look at some of the things that make the United States unique. We don't have the highest rate of all types of crimes, but we do, for instance, have the highest rate of murder. So we're going to look at some of the things about American society that contribute to our specific crime levels. Basically, if we want less crime, we need to change society. And we're starting to see some of that, a push for some of that happening. But one of the main issues is what people are doing with some of their funds. It's great to see a lot of these people giving donations and things like that. But the reason that they're able to do that now is because they've hoarded all this wealth and prevented it from doing any kind of betterment in the communities for so long. So it's good to see that people are like Michael Jordan donating $100 million, but that money could have done more along the way. So hopefully we'll see not just the sort of in the moment activism, but lasting change coming from what's happening in our society outside right now. But we'll follow those changes throughout the course of the semester.